All right, welcome back, everybody. A weird Tuesday episode for us here on the Ball Hawks podcast. It was Halloween weekend. We have kids, we have lives. We decided to do other things, but we are here. You might have just seen us on our That Helps No One Fantasy Cast. We are doing our second show of the night just for you guys. You obviously know me, and I'm joined by Mr. Christmas himself. Some call him the ho-ho-ho festivity man himself, Christopher G. Phillips. How are you doing?
Good, man. Mariah Carey's defrosted. It's November 1st. Halloween's behind us. I'm ready for Christmas season.
I saw you posted on Twitter. Our good friend Kate put something like she wore some Christmas stuff to work, and her coworkers were not quite impressed with her attire, and you said not all heroes wear capes.
Facts.
I don't know. Like we like to agree on some things. This is not one of those things. Like I know people that are like, hey, it's 100 days till Christmas. And I just feel like those are the worst types of people ever. I guess it's okay now. Like that's the next big kind of shenanigans get together, I guess.
Well, for Canadians, it is. Yeah. Thanks. Our friends to the south have Thanksgiving coming up, but I know there's a lot of people that are like, no Christmas before Remembrance Day, but I am not one of those people. No disrespect.
Clearly, you are not.
No, and I've had my Christmas lights up all year, so.
Oh, you're one of the ones that never takes them down.
No, I usually do. I was too busy this spring between like hurting my hip and then playing lacrosse and everything else. I was just too busy to take them down.
Yeah, that makes sense. We have never put lights up at our house here. Fun fact for you, because I don't know if you remember when we moved, but we
moved in on like Christmas Day last year.
Yeah. It was like the 21st or something like that. And we're like, okay, we got to make sure we get a tree up so Santa can come to our house. Like kids were really like, that had to be one thing. And I was like, well, okay, we're not doing anything else. Like no lights, no nothing. Cause we need to unpack and get our lives. Like we need beds to sleep in.
No, Dad, Christmas lights and a Christmas tree are way more important than beds.
Yeah. So much more important.
Before we get going here, I just want to say kudos to your wife, Alyssa. She absolutely nailed it once again with the Halloween costumes. For anyone that hasn't seen, I think Steve posted it on Twitter, but if not, go check out Steve's Twitter at ssfisher87. I mean, Saturday night, they were dressed up as the Incredibles. Steve was Mr. Incredible. His wife was, of course, Elastigirl, and the kids were Dash and Violet, respectively, which was impressive. I quite enjoyed that one. I appreciated, Steve, how you really had to pump up your muscles, probably extra big on that Mr. Incredible's costume.
Tons of padding in there.
Yeah. But the one that just blew me away, and I mean, you saw my comment on Facebook when you shared it on Facebook that this one's going to be hard for her to top next year. Steve's wife did makeup to make Steve look like Jack Skellington from Nightmare Before Christmas, and again, they did the whole family thing. So his wife was Sally, and his son was Oogie Boogie, and your daughter was the ghost dog, whose name I do not know. Zero.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. There we go. Was Zero. So yeah, she nailed it this year. So again, kudos to Alyssa for being incredibly talented.
Yeah. I was saying this on our show earlier. She's already planning next year's Halloween costume. It's been a tradition for a few years now that the kids are getting a little older. November 1st comes and they're like, okay, what are we going to be next year? And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like my face still hurts from ripping off the bald cap. Let's just tone it down a little on the Halloween, but she always does such a great job. Easton was really the one who stole the show, though. Like, I mean, you got a 4-year-old dressed up in a burlap sack, and of course, like, some people don't recognize costumes, or they kind of make small talk with kids, and classic, they ask Sienna, and she's not telling, I'm just a ghost dog. Like, she's not even saying like where it's from. And Easton's like, I mean, half the time he's walking into people's houses still, and I'm like, no, you can't run into their house. And they're like, what are you, Mr. Potato Sack Guy? And he just like stares at him with this disgusted look. He's like, I'm Oogie Boogie. And of course, they clearly don't know who that is, and they're like, yeah, here's some candy, get out of my house now.
I love the kids that walk into people's houses. I just think that is so funny when kids do that. Olivia used to do that for years.
Yeah.
And I'm not the candy giver outer. I'm the trick or treater. But Nadine was saying we had a whole bunch of kids do that at our house last night. Just walk right in. And of course, when my kids, we the way our neighborhood's kind of like worked out, we did like half the neighborhood, and then we stopped at the house because I had to go to the bathroom. And I was like, oh, kids can just trick or treat our house. But of course, my kids just walk in. So now all these other kids are coming up behind them, are just starting to like walk in and like rush the door. And I'm like, oh God, like, move, I have to pee.
This is my house. I pay the mortgage.
Yeah, right?
Little
Get out of here, you freeloaders.
That's so funny. And I saw your kids. I think Olivia went as Maleficent, and Carter, I didn't know who the character was. Peter
Venkman.
I don't know who that is.
Because you've never seen a movie in your life. He was a Ghostbuster.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember where I watched a part of, I haven't watched Ghostbusters in probably like 20 years. I don't know why. It was on the TV when I just turned it on. So whatever channel it was on there. I don't know the show well enough to know who the characters are, but great.
It was on AMC tonight. I was also watching that earlier. My wife actually, like, I think secretly hates that movie, but like not actually. But I'm pretty sure it's the movie that's on cable TV the most out of any other movie in existence. It's either that or Back to the Future. Those two movies are on all the time. And anytime I see them, I don't care what part of the movie it's on, I'm turning it on. I gotta watch it. Gotta watch it.
It's just like, on, and you're like, okay, we're doing this now.
Yeah. Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, Pitch Perfect. Don't care. If it's on TV, I'm watching it.
That's great. So we are going to be doing kind of like an expedited show here. Hopefully, as you guys heard, we've already done a show, a little tired. So we are going to kind of expedite the show. But before we get into our teams, Chris, I think it would be really weird if we didn't talk about the trade deadline. I think the busiest trade deadline ever on deadline day.
I think I saw something about that. Yeah.
Was it 10 trades? I'm still literally catching up. Super busy day for me.
I think they include like everything that kind of happens like the week leading up to trade deadline as like trade deadline deals.
Okay.
I'm not really sure because like I saw a graphic today and it was like the McCaffrey trade was on that graphic.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So I mean, I saw 7 of them. I might be missing one. I thought it would be kind of interesting just to get your opinion. I'll tell you what mine was, of what you think was just from today. What do you think the biggest impact trade was? We have, I couldn't remember if this one's today or yesterday or whatever. William Jackson, cornerback, goes to the Steelers. We have Jeff Wilson Jr., running back, going to the Dolphins. Naheem Hines going to the Bills. TJ Hawkinson staying in the division and going to to the Minnesota Vikings. Chase Claypool going to the Bears. I heard that the Packers also offered basically exactly what the Bears did, but the Steelers anticipated the Bears to have a better draft pick. Bradley Chubb went to the Dolphins. And then one of the weirder ones, Calvin Ridley going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, because we know he is suspended for at least this year and yes, you guessed it, gambling on the Falcons to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. You literally can't make this kind of stuff up. What do you think? What's your biggest trade of the day, or maybe the most impactful one?
It's got to be Bradley Chubb to Miami, I would think. I mean, that team's got a ton of firepower on offense. Being able to kind of bolster that defense and get a premier pass rusher to go along with their safeties who are playing phenomenal. Their DBs are playing pretty well. So getting the guy that can just get pressure on the quarterback, that half second sooner, that full second sooner, whatever it may be, is just going to help that defensive back end that much more, and it's going to take that much more pressure off the linebackers and everything else. So, I mean that division after the Bills is pretty wide open. So there's no reason why whoever finishes second in that division and possibly even the second and third place teams could end up in wild card positions. So I think Bradley Chubb to Miami is probably the most impactful.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I think he went for the most draft capital as well out of all of the trades.
What masterwork by the Dolphins though to right? Take they turned Laramie Tunsil into all these then they took the Laramie Tunsil, turned that around, made the trade with the 49ers, got 3 first-round picks from the 49ers, and they took those 3 picks from the 49ers, turned it into Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Bradley Chubb. That's masterclass of management.
Yeah, the funny thing about trades is when you're trading for a draft pick, you're always trading for the ability to get the draft pick right, or at least use that draft capital to trade then again to get it right. Like draft capital is great, but if you squander those picks or you don't draft well or you make a bad trade yourself, you're kind of giving a player up. So I agree. Like they turned that into a slew of premier talent. Part of me wants to go Hawkinson to the Vikings because I feel like that's just kind of what that offense is missing. You got Justin Jefferson, you got Dalvin Cook, you got Adam Thielen. You just needed that kind of star kind of tight end. We know what Hawkinson can do. I think long term, and you were talking about this in our chat, Calvin Ridley to the Jags is exactly what that team needs. You have Calvin Ridley. They obviously just put a whole bunch of money into Christian Kirk. They brought Evan Ingram over as a tight end. They've got Travis Etienne. All of those weapons for Flowmaster himself to throw the ball to. And you're looking like you have kind of like a powerhouse offense, really kind of sneaky. They managed to add just the right pieces, the right time. And I would not be surprised to see the Jags as a top 10 offense potentially next year if kind of everything clicks together. I think Calvin Ridley is that big of a game changer, especially Trevor Lawrence throwing them the ball.
Yeah, shore up that offensive line. I don't know what condition the offensive line is in, but make sure that you have all your ducks in a row as far as the offensive line goes. And yeah, that offense I think could be very, very scary next year.
Right. It kind of same thing. I guess I should have looked into it maybe a little more, but you have your weapons, I guess, for lack of a better term, with premier wideouts, a tight end that's really serviceable, a star in the making, and a running back, and obviously a star quarterback. It allows you to kind of go all in on the offensive line. It looks here like they have Cam Robinson still, Tyler Shatley, Luke Fortner, Brandon Scherf, and Jawan Taylor. So they could use a little bit of filler pieces here and there. But again, draft, maybe free agency, and you got yourself, quite a powerhouse of a team there. This is getting a little harder to choose who should go first in our team rundown here because we're kind of mirroring each other. Hey, you win, I win. I win, yeah. You win.
Both our teams. I think I've gone first in back-to-back weeks, but yeah, both our teams are still sitting pretty first in our division with matching 5-3 records.
Yeah, I would not have thought that to start this year. I don't think you would have thought that to start this year.
Season of low expectations, baby.
Lower your standards. Yeah, we won't finish that one, but we know where we're going with that. Why don't I go first then? Because my pick for the actual trade would have been Roquan Smith getting traded from the Chicago Bears to the Baltimore Ravens.
Is he a wide receiver?
there was a lot of talk about that, right? Like, oh wow, you definitely like. There was a lot of fun memes like, oh,
Man.
Lamar, he finds out there's another piece to the defense.
Yeah, Marquise was pissed when he saw that Ridley trade. Pissed.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah, he was not happy when he saw that Ridley trade, and I think it was something. I mean, I say pissed. I mean, that's probably maybe strong, but it was like, come on, Ravens, like something along those lines, like just unhappy that. Which I mean,
I get it.
To be fair, Ridley doesn't help you guys this year, and you still got to worry about getting Lamar under contract. So, like, does it really make sense to make that trade for a guy who's going to be there next year, but next year is a big question mark right now, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer in deals that can help you out long term are still good deals to do. It wouldn't be like a splash for this year, but then again, like if you're asking me if I want a, premier wide receiver added to the team, of course I do. But anyways, they go out and they trade a 2nd and a 5th round pick. They also threw in linebacker AJ Klein, who has not been good for them at all, for a really high-end linebacker in Roquan Smith. The part I love about this deal even more, and I was kind of like wondering, like, why did they pay a 2nd and a 5th? Like, Roquan Smith is leading the league in tackles, but he's kind of having like maybe a more down year compared to previous years that he's had. So it came out later that the Bears are, Roquan Smith was owed $5.408 million for the rest of the season, and the Ravens are paying him $575,000 of that deal. And so it's not a massive cap hit, which is always nice because you never know what's going to happen with injuries. But kind of like an underrated thing with that is if he's a free agent and you can't figure out a long-term deal with him and he goes to free agency and he gets paid because he's going to be a 25 or 26-year-old linebacker with high pedigree, you can also get a compensatory pick back. So even if he turns out to just be a rental player, maybe you get a 3rd round pick back and that offsets the loss of what you paid to get him, but you're shoring up a spot on the defense that is going to allow Patrick Queen to kind of do what he does best and shoot those gaps, look on blitzes to put pressure on the quarterback. Roquan Smith is really good in coverage too, so it doesn't hurt having like a complete inside linebacker.
I was gonna say, is that kind of the plan going forward then, is to have Patrick Queen kind of focusing on rushing the passer more and leaving Smith as that off-ball linebacker?
My gut instinct is yes, because if there's kind of been one knock kind of on Queen, it's that he in coverage he's kind of, not that he's playing slow, but he kind of just plays almost like he's not sure a lot of the time. Oddly enough, in the last few weeks, since he's been kind of criticized online, he's kind of come out with his hair on fire and he's looked phenomenal. But I mean, if you can have a person playing right next to him that looks just as good, and then you have Odafe Owe on the other side as an outside linebacker. They just activated David Ajabo and Tyus Bowser back from their injuries, so there's a chance they could play also on that other outside linebacker, or maybe in like a bit of a rotation. That front 7 is looking mega scary now, and I love it because their kind of strength going into the season was the fact that they spent a 1st round pick on Kyle Hamilton. They went out and got prized free agent safety Marcus Williams. They were getting Marcus Peters back, pair him with Marlon Humphrey. The back end, the DBs were supposed to be the power of this team. And now it's kind of shifting to the front seven, and Ravens fans are kind of getting a, I guess, defense of the old, to say that, that can hold them in games and can stop powerhouse teams from putting up tons of points on them. So I love the move. I haven't really been on Twitter a whole lot to see what, the flock thought about it, but to be honest, I just don't care. I like the move, and I'm happy with that. So I'm also happy that I got to watch Thursday Night Football last week. The Ravens caused Tom Brady and Giselle to basically make their divorce official. They put him into divorce, I believe. And I know you saw my tweet there. Like, a lot of people are having fun, and there's going to be punchlines. Of course, there's going to be punchlines. You got to feel for Brady. He's in uncharted territory now in his career for losses in a row, and he's hasn't had like a losing record since, like, I don't know, I was in high school pretty much. It's weird to think like that. The game didn't the game wasn't all wonderful, happy go lucky. They started off horribly. I was so frustrated with this game in the first quarter. I just kept yelling, execute, finish. Everything about this team on offense was just slow drive. They, a couple like bobbled catches to Andrews. It was kind of nice that he was playing. Turns out he like kind of re-injured it. Then they get down to the red zone, and it's as if Greg Roman has never called a red zone play in his life. Like, they're just so poorly designed. Like, defenses are basically figuring it out before they snap the ball. It was not the greatest intro. This also happened with Tampa turning the ball over on a special teams. I think it was the very first punt. They punted it. Justice Hill basically pushes his guy right into the guy trying to catch the ball, and they get the ball in the red zone to start. Have to settle for 3 points. Super, super frustrating. Was not a big fan. The Ravens had a total of 15 yards in the first quarter, so it was not a pleasant start to it. The defense, though, man, were they fun to watch. So, like, that, it's just why I'm so excited with these defensive additions. We know Tampa's been struggling offensively, but they have so many weapons that I feel like at any time this team could turn their season around, get Mike Evans really involved. Leonard Fournette could go playoff Lenny mode. They just have too many weapons. So it was nice to see the Ravens, again, Cincinnati, now Tampa. They're playing kind of these powerhouse offenses, and they are not getting bullied around like the Ravens of last year, which is kind of nice to see. I don't know if you saw this one, Chris. Tyler Linderbaum, the Ravens' other first-round pick, rookie center out of Iowa, absolutely put Devin White into his grave. Did you see this one?
I saw it floating around. I never actually watched the clip, though.
Oh, it is.
I'm a bad co-host.
He basically gets out into the second level. And so Devin White, he's a Pro Bowl middle linebacker. He should be able to hold his own. And Tyler Linderbaum, like, grabs him right inside the numbers and starts just churning those legs. And you can see the moment he gets a hold of him, Devin Smith is like, oh my gosh, why am I trying to blank? Devin
White.
Devin White. Holy, this is why you don't do 2 podcasts in one day, kids. He has this look of panic, like, I'm going to eat it. And so Lamar is kind of running behind him, and Linderbaum is running him back so hard. And then Lamar gets in front of them and basically trips another defender, and the defender trips Devin White, and Linderbaum comes down on him and he drives his ass into the ground. It is so funny. Like, he he snatched his soul on that play, and it was one of the best clips I've ever seen. Love the way that kid is playing. Yeah, it's just the first half I was not overly impressed with. I think there's a lot of things they need to fix, and good thing they only have one more game before their bye, because this team really needs to figure it out offensively during those bye weeks. I saw a fun little stat because they played the Thursday game. I think, what is it, like 11 days until they play the Monday nighter, obviously, against the New Orleans Saints. But with their bye in there and it being on a Sunday coming back, they will have only played one game in 29 days. So we know that injury woes continue. Looks like Rashad Bateman is going to miss a little bit of time, probably not playing against New Orleans. Mark Andrews, it's looking like it's kind of like an iffy thing. Gus Edwards went down with a hamstring, which was nice. It looked really sketchy. I was concerned it was that knee again. And visions of J.K. Dobbins coming back too early. Turns out to only be a hammy, so they can really use this rest time. And in that rest time, they also need to figure out, red zone offense. How are they going to be creative in play calling? Now that they have not really added that next level wide receiver, how are they going to use Devin Duvernay? How are they going to continue to use Demarcus Robinson? What role will Isaiah Likely have going forward? He kind of stepped in for Andrews and looked phenomenal. It was fantastic to see. This team has a lot of question marks, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and I'm just really curious to see who's going to be the one to rise to the occasion, and what is the play call going to look like going forward, especially in that red zone, because we've heard it so many times. It's so cliche in the NFL that if you can hold other teams to just settling for a field goal instead of scoring touchdowns on you, you got a really good chance of winning football games. So the Ravens cannot fall victim to that.
The old bend, don't break defense.
Yeah, for, I don't know, the last 10 years at least that I can think of, the Ravens have been that bend, don't break. Like, we give up a ton of yards, but we don't give up a lot of points. And who really cares about yards at the end of it? If you score more points than the other team, you win the game. It's not that freaking hard. So, they're definitely going to have to figure that out. It looked like they kind of figured it out in the second half. I don't want to go too far into it because I know we're going to try and do just like really, really quick show here. But the thing that I really liked in the second half, and I'm really curious to see how they come out early on against New Orleans, are these sustained drives that they had in the second half. They had 9 plays, 77 yards. That touchdown went to Kenyon Drake. They then had like a 9-play, 93 yards for 5 minutes, 26 seconds to a Duvernay touchdown. The time of possession and sustaining drives in the second half is definitely going to be something I'm watching going forward to in the New Orleans Saints game. Christopher, I know how the Seahawks did. I actually watched another half. I'm the good co-host over here. Like,
you are.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Hey, to be fair, in my defense, I oh no, I you know what, I think I did actually. I was gonna say I worked out on Sunday, so I wasn't watching any football in the morning, but I did actually watch the Ravens game against the Buccaneers. But like, you know how it is on a Thursday night. It's like you're eating dinner, you're trying to put the kids to bed. Like, it's just like it's on, but you're not really watching.
Yeah.
Unless it's your team. Like, I'm sure you were paying attention. Like, if the Seahawks play on a Thursday night, I'm like, good night. See you later.
You guys.
The Seahawks and the going into the game, surprisingly 6-1 New York Giants. It was I saw a funny thing leading into the game. There was one game in all of week 8 between two teams where they both had winning records, and it was the Seahawks and Giants game, which
Really?
8 weeks ago, who saw that coming? So
Not
yeah, not anybody. I mean, I'm sure everybody was expecting both teams to have losing records, and that game wouldn't have such important implications that it did. I mean, that could end up being a very important game later down the line for potential seeding and things like that. So. Leading into this, I know I said it's a season of expectations. It's kind of funny. I was at work today, and one of the guys at work, he's just starting to get into American football. He came over from India a few years ago, and so he's just he went to his first Seahawks game. He went to the Falcons game a few weeks ago, and he's starting to follow it more and more. And so we were talking about it at work. He goes, "So Chris, do you think the Seahawks are going to make the Super Bowl?" And I was like,
whoa.
First of all, it is way too early to talk about that. We're only halfway through the season. I was like, right now, I was like, yeah, I was like, right now, I was like, if they make the playoffs, like, I was like, they're not even a lock to make the playoffs right now. Like, there's still that much football left that like a lot can happen between now and the end of the season. I'm not saying Super Bowl, I'm not saying playoffs, I'm not saying anything. And then I was trying to explain to him, I was like, this is the season of low expectations for me. I was like, I'm not really expecting anything from this team. He goes, well, why not? I'm like, because I don't want to get hurt. I was like,
you can't get hurt if you're not expecting them to win.
It's a self-defense mechanism. But like, at what point? Like I was saying to him today, I was like, I'm trying to figure it out though. That like, at what point do I let them back in and I open my heart up and say, this is it. We're doing it. We're going to playoffs. Like, let's go. And then I just get hurt again. So I don't know.
That'll be interesting. I mean, I'm always rooting for you because we're not, division rivals. We're not conference rivals. So of course I want the Seahawks to do well because, they're my buddy's team. I'll be curious if they are like continuing on this path. Like, what week in our episodes will you be like, guys, I am in. I am ready to get hurt. Like, both of us watched The Bachelor. I'm sure you're watching Bachelor in Paradise. Like, at what point are you all in, ready to tell the Seahawks you are in love with them? Not just like you're
when
like,
am I ready to accept the rose?
Yeah.
I just, and that's the thing is like, I'm trying to figure it out. And they've got a pretty tough back half of their schedule. I think about Arizona this week, which I know they already beat Arizona once. But those Arizona games are always weird. I know I said that 2 weeks ago when they played Arizona, that those games are always weird and they're hard to predict. Next week they go to Germany to play Tampa Bay, which, I mean, again, Tampa is underperforming, but when you're going up against Tom Brady, you can't count him out. And then they have the Rams twice still. They have to play the 49ers again, and they have to play the Chiefs. So they've got a tough back half of the schedule. And
yeah, that's ooh.
Yeah.
Like,
right?
What do you I mean, I don't want to say what I think the record is, but like, you're looking at those teams, like what are the expectations? Like, what do you see out of those games that you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, the one plus side, I guess, is the Niners game is at least in Seattle. Like, hopefully that helps. We saw the crowd definitely disrupt the Giants offense this week, so hopefully they can keep that going. The Rams seem to be Sean McVay is, I think, Pete Carroll's kryptonite. So I don't have much hope for those games. And the Chiefs, I mean, the Chiefs, you never know. I don't know. For some reason, I'm not
tough on that one.
What's that? Sorry?
I think they're in tough on that one. Like you
Probably.
said, I feel like a team like the Seahawks right now, the silver lining is when teams come to Seattle. Like, if you've ever been to a Seahawks game, it's no surprise that they are loud. But also, Kansas City at Arrowhead is loud as well. So, like, could that be like the deciding factor in a lot of these games with the Seahawks? Like, whether they're at home or on the road? Maybe not with the Rams, because apparently that's like every other team gets an extra home game when they play the Rams, basically.
Or the Chargers.
Or the Chargers.
But yeah, so I mean, the Giants game, again, it was kind of a funny game. A lot of people were expecting a lot of offensive fireworks from both teams. Both quarterbacks are going into the game playing really well. I mean, of course, Saquon Barkley's been having a good year. Kenneth Walker, since he took over the starting job, has been playing really well. So a lot of people are expecting just a lot of fireworks. Going into the game, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf were both game time decisions, which the fact that DK was a game time decision after what happened last week, and it was his patellar tendon that was injured, was shocking. Tyler popping up as a game time decision was also shocking, but both guys played and they both seemed to be well. They came out of the game with, more or less, I think, no injuries, no worse for wear. But no, this game started out as a defensive battle. I think Seattle went into the game with something like 8 3-and-outs all season, and I think they forced 3 3-and-outs on the Giants' first 3 drives or something like that. Like it was like it was they I don't know, the Seahawks defense, man, all of a sudden has just like woken up. I don't know if like chemistry was a problem, or just learning the new 3-4 scheme and how it all works, or what it is. But Seahawks in the last 3 weeks have gone from like the worst defense to one of the best defenses in the entire league based on fancy stats. Losing Jamal Adams, of course, affected things as well. But yeah, I mean, there were no
really getting after the quarterback.
What's that?
Was it? I'm trying to remember in my like blur, like you said, it wasn't my team, so I wasn't really like paying overly attention. I thought they got to Daniel Jones a lot.
5 times.
5 sacks.
5 times.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, Uchenna Nwosu had 2, Poona Ford had 1, Cody Barton had 1, and Boye Mafe had 1.
Nice.
Yeah, so yeah, and like they were putting pressure on him all day. I don't know if you saw my tweet after the game, but the unsung hero of the game, in my opinion, was Bruce Irvin. That guy was, talking about a guy playing with his hair on fire. Bruce Irvin was shot out of a cannon every time he was on the field. He had one play. He got in the backfield so quick. It was a running play. It was supposed to be a counter, and he got in the backfield so quick that as soon as Daniel Jones handed the ball off to Saquon, Bruce Irvin literally just like pushed Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones tripped Saquon. Like he tackled 2 guys at once. Like he was, Bruce Irvin was phenomenal this Sunday, which, I mean, as a situational guy, that's exactly what we need when you're on the field for, so few snaps, make an impact. And that's what Bruce Irvin absolutely did. Neither team scored any points in the first quarter. First time all season the Seahawks have been shut out in the first quarter. Their first points came in the second quarter on a 16-play drive that led to a touchdown to DK Metcalf. The thing that impressed me the most about that touchdown drive is the Seahawks went for it on 4th down twice.
Really?
Which is, I mean, for anyone that's watched Seahawks football for the last 10 years, Pete Carroll does not go for it on 4th down. And he did it twice on the same drive within like plays of each other. Like the Seahawks got the first down on the first 4th down that they went for. They got it, which was a super, super smart play. They put Tyler Lockett in the backfield beside Geno Smith, and they ran him out of the backfield. And instead of like putting a little chip block on the edge rusher, he just ran right by him. Geno floated the ball over his head, and Tyler Lockett was wide open for an easy first down. The next first down was like literally 3 plays later. It was, I think, a 4th and 2, and everyone was expecting, okay, they're going to run it this time. They passed it last time. They're going to run it this time. And it was one of those like it was an RPO where Geno went to hand it off to Kenneth Walker. It wasn't there, and he did the old Patrick Mahomes flip to Will Dissly for the first down. My boy, Uncle Will, for the first down. And then he found DK Metcalf in the back of the end zone, all by himself, no defender within 5 yards for an easy touchdown to open the game. Seahawks defense was dominating. They were doing really well. The Giants special teams managed to pin the Seahawks deep in their own territory on a punt. I think first play after that punt was a screen pass to Tyler Lockett or a short out to Tyler Lockett. He unfortunately fumbled the ball, put the Giants in the red zone, tie game 7-7. They went back and forth a couple more times. I think it was like, I want to say 10-10 at the half. Maybe I can't remember. 10-7, 10-10, something like that. But again, defensively, the Seahawks were playing phenomenal. Mike Jackson was a absolute thriller. See what I did there? On
Mike Jackson, that's so weird.
On D, well, it is Mike Jackson. He was awesome on defense. He had 7 tackles. The Giants really seemed to be wanting to attack his side of the field. They were avoiding Tariq Woolen, big time, avoiding Tariq Woolen and attacking Mike Jackson. It's like the old Richard Sherman days when teams used to attack Byron Maxwell or Brandon Browner or whoever it was on the other side of the field opposite of Richard Sherman, which is pretty cool to see for a rookie getting that kind of respect already. But yeah, Mike Jackson, again, great defensive game. I mean, the Seahawks released Sidney Jones today because of how well Mike Jackson's been playing, and Trey Brown's about to get activated off a pup. So, I mean, Mike Jackson, Tariq Woolen, Kobe Bryant, and Trey Brown. That's a pretty impressive young DB core. So no complaints there. Lots of roster control and guys on inexpensive rookie contracts still for a number of years.
What a compliment to those guys. Hey, like there can be nothing better as a young, especially DB. Like, DBs have to have that swagger, that kind of like attitude, that, extreme confidence. And when your GM is willing to waive, a useful veteran that knows the system really well in favor of first and second year players, because of how well they are producing, that says a ton about those guys. So good for them.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you were still watching it or not when Tyler Lockett wide open heading into the end zone. Geno Smith makes a beautiful throw, and it bounces off Lockett's face mask, and he drops it.
No, I did not see that.
So uncharacteristic for Tyler Lockett. I don't know if that guy's like, I don't know if I've ever seen him drop a pass before, especially one that easy. He was going to just waltz right in for an easy touchdown. And you could see, like, it was third down. The Seahawks had to settle for a field goal to take the lead 13-10. And Lockett was just like beside himself. And you can see he was on the bench, head down. And here comes Pete Carroll, runs over, puts his arms around him, says something to his ear, like, we got you on the next one. We got you on the next one. Next offensive possession, Seahawks go out. Geno went 5 for 5 for 75 yards and a tutty to Tyler Lockett on what looked to be the exact same play, exact same route, exact same corner where he just dropped the last one. Beautiful rainbow toss, dropped it right in there. Again, waltzed right into the end zone. 20-10 Seahawks. They didn't look back from there. Seahawks special teams was a big difference in this game as well. They caused 2 fumbles on special teams this week. Again, my boy, Uncle Will, caused the first fumble on a punt, and I believe he recovered the second fumble. So, I mean, winning that turnover battle is what wins you games. I mean, you were saying not giving up touchdowns. That's a big thing too. The Seahawks gave up 1 touchdown all game, and the only reason that happened is because of the Tyler Lockett fumble. I don't think the Giants were really in Seahawks territory much all game. Saquon Barkley only had like 53 yards rushing. Daniel Jones only had 176 yards passing. No touchdowns for Daniel Jones. Wan'Dale Robinson was basically non-existent, which I was watching because I had him on my DFS squad this week. Is Wan'Dale Robinson, like, did he get hurt? Like, he's been like, I haven't even heard his name. He's been so non-existent today. So Seahawks are 5-3. Like I said, they're first in their division. They're I think one game up on the 49ers, who are 500 at 4-4. Big divisional game this upcoming week against the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. I mean, of course, last time we played the Cardinals 2 weeks ago, they didn't have DeAndre Hopkins, so it's going to be a big test for Tariq Woolen to shut down Hopkins. I'm interested to see if Pete has Woolen shadow DeAndre and follow him around the field. That's outside of Pete's normal coaching scheme, so we'll see what happens there. But again, season of low expectations, and somehow the Seahawks are blowing all expectations I had leading into this season.
Is it too early to already give Geno the comeback player of the year? Like, is there another player that, I mean, you'd mentioned Saquon. I know, like, coming off a big injury, he kind of didn't look like the Saquon. He's finally looking back to being like one of the premier dual threat kind of running backs. But like, we're talking about a guy who was a first round pick, who was bounced around, basically was left for dead, maybe as like a backup kind of role for the rest of his life. And now he's looking like a legitimate threat. And like, can we just give him comeback player of the year already?
I struggle with that because what did he come back from? I mean, he hasn't been hurt. He's been he hasn't been a starter, but he's been in the league. He's been, he did get a couple starts last season as well. It's like when Ryan Tannehill won comeback player of the year a couple of years ago when he went from Miami to Tennessee. It's like, well, but what did he come back from? Like, he escaped Josh McDaniels' offense, and so he wins comeback player of the year. Like, so I don't know. Like, I mean, it would be cool to see, but I think more importantly, over comeback player of the year, we should be probably giving Pete coach of the year.
I mean, when we talked in the off season, we're talking Russell Wilson trade. Like, this was, would Pete even stay? It should have been a rebuild by every sense of the word. Maybe like, what about GM of the year?
Like, John Schneider? I was just going to say that too, right?
Do as good of a job in drafting. Like, we might look back, sometimes you look back like 5-6 years and you start saying like, what are the best draft classes ever? And you start comparing them. We could see this one in 2 or 3 years being like the draft class of the year. And I know you've talked about like doubling up on bookend tackles, doubling up on, starting caliber corners on the outside, starting running backs, all that jazz. It could be the one, right?
And it's always funny to look back at the Seahawks 2012 draft, because that was the draft. They got Bobby Wagner, they got Bruce Irvin, they got Russell Wilson, and I think they got an F draft grade for that draft. And so it's always funny to look back at that draft and be like, whoops.
Guess draft classes don't mean anything.
Well, that's what's always so funny about these draft, experts or whatever that put grades on these drafts. Like, you don't know what a draft is out of the gates. Like, I mean, it takes some time to learn what you have, and I mean, at least let them play a game, right? And everyone always says that draft class from 10 years ago is the best Seahawks draft class of all time, which, I mean, arguably it is. I mean, Bobby Wagner and Russell Wilson are easy Hall of Famers. But who knows, man? Maybe one day this draft class can. So it's pretty impressive to see what John Schneider did, and it's really exciting leading into next year's draft, knowing that we have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds, and to see what they can do with that, right?
Yeah.
If they can put together another draft next spring like they did this year, man, watch out.
Yeah, I mean, what a fun way to rebuild, just by trading like your franchise face of the franchise quarterback, and in 2 short years you could be back to relevance of like legitimately putting a Super Bowl contender together, because you got all these cheap contracts. You can start adding like some big free agents, maybe make some trade deadline deals in your favor, and voila, you've got a team that nobody expects to win is going to be winning.
I would say the bigger question for Geno is he comeback player of the year? It's, do the Seahawks extend him?
Yeah, it's going to be a point of conversation because
it has to be.
He's played himself into the conversation, and
absolutely. He's earned a contract, at least another 2-3 year extension, whatever it may be, maybe a 3 year extension with an out after 2 years or whatever it may be. He's earned that right. Which, I mean, again, it's almost it's a good position to be in, because now you don't have to panic. You don't have to find that quarterback of the future. And now all of a sudden you have all this draft capital heading into next year's draft, and you use one of those first round draft picks to draft a premier edge rusher.
Yeah.
Or a premier linebacker, or whatever it may be, right? Maybe I don't know what like, so many options.
Yeah.
You trade back, you gain more draft capital, you maybe trade back and get first round picks for next year, for 2024, and that's when you start looking at your quarterback for the future. I don't know. Geno's definitely giving the Seahawks a lot of options right now.
Definitely. We almost made an hour, Chris. We are podcasting experts. We're going to skip our Skies the Falling segment this week because, like we said, we've already done one podcast. This is our second one of the night. Sleepy Chris is ready to go to sleep, and so is Sleepy Steve.
Early tomorrow.
Yeah, to do some swollen. As always, thanks for joining us here on the Ballhawks podcast on the Dean Blundell Network. Christopher, as always, I give you the last words.
Yeah, again, thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of Ballhawks podcast. Again, go subscribe to the podcast over on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen. Please subscribe. Don't forget to leave a rating and a review as well. We'd love to read the reviews, especially. They usually make us crack up, especially when people tell us how bad of a teacher Steve is. Give us a follow over on Twitter at ballhawks_pod. Follow my guy Steve at ssfisher87. You can see mine on the screen there at phillipschris12. And as always, guys, go Hawks.
Peace.